is NBC Palm Springs.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Sarah Sanchez. Another shooting late this afternoon in Palm Springs. Palm Springs police responded to reports of gunshots on West Gateway Drive near East Gate Road. Now, this is the Desert Highland Gateway Estates. Police shut down the area for an investigation. Shell casings were in the street and bullet holes were found in the door of a gray vehicle, but there were no reports of anyone being hurt. This afternoon shooting happened in a neighborhood that has seen an increase in shootings this summer. Neighbors are afraid to talk to us, feeling like their safety is at risk, their neighborhood under siege. And it's not just Palm Springs. Law enforcement in other Valley cities are investigating recent shootings and homicides. Our Kitty Alvarado has the latest.
Early Wednesday morning, the Desert Regional SWAT team arrested a 16-year-old boy in connection with the murders and violence being unleashed by rival gangs in Desert Highlands Estate and Sunrise Santiago Mobile Home Park.
He was charged with a negligent discharge of a firearm, conspiracy, and a battery.
And just 2 weeks ago, 2 other teenagers were arrested. One is 15 years old, the other 16. One of them is being charged with murder.
We're not giving details as to which murder or any of that right now because there's still additional evidence and suspects being sought in connection with these homicides.
Since October, there have been 24 crime scenes and 4 murders in the area. Lieutenant William Hutchinson says the few are putting many at risk.
In any community, in any area, it's a really small percentage of people that are committing the majority of crimes.
But overall, he says the ongoing violence may be getting worse because of the stress caused by the pandemic.
We have people out of work and out of school. And a lot of time to themselves, and we understand tensions are high on a lot of different levels.
Ben Guitron from the Indio Police Department agrees.
Our summer compared to the last summer, totally different. We weren't dealing with half of the challenges everybody's dealing with.
Police in Indio are trying to solve a murder that happened on Saturday and also looking for this suspect, Jesse Hernandez, who they say shot a female driving by K&A Market. He does say one type of crime is down.
Property crimes like burglaries and so forth, because I think people are mostly home right now. Everybody's pretty vigilant.
Both departments say a big part of the problem is people aren't reporting crime.
We need that information from the public to help put an end to this.
Kitty Alvarado, NBC Palm Springs.
We're taking a live look now at our Agua Caliente Casino Cam and Rancho Mirage that's looking west. Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett is standing by with a look at our forecast. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Sarah. We are still tracking some of that haze out there that's been kind of hanging over the Coachella Valley through most of the day today. Humidity wasn't so bad. Dew points ran in about the 50-degree range today, but there was still just kind of that dust funk that stays out there this time of year. Won't impede you from seeing a beautiful full moon out there. Peaked last night. In fact, about 24 hours ago was when this thing peaked, but this is going to be one of those ones that's looked full on Monday, it looked full last night, it looks full tonight, and it's beautiful. Not a particularly bright one. Just in case you're wondering, it's called the corn moon, the fruit moon, or my favorite is the barley moon. This is the time of year when a lot of harvesting takes place. In fact, next month we'll have the harvest moon, but that barley harvest leads to things like Oktoberfest traditionally in Germany. Probably not going to happen this year, but nice to have something to look forward to. Taking a look at radar out there, there's a whole lot of nothing going on. Again, no problem seeing the skies tonight. In fact, high pressure taking over the entire west. As I zoom this out, there is just no storm activity. That little green blip you see right there is just a radar anomaly. I'm assuming is most likely smoke from the fires in Northern California and Southern Oregon there. But look at this, just weather. Nothing. Half of the country is completely and totally quiet right now. That is not the case when I push the magic button, though. Look at all the color here. The entire state of California. Look at me drag that in there. All of that red, that is an excessive heat warning, or there are excessive heat watches in place as well. That's going to be the entire Labor Day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Temperatures running about 6 to 12 degrees above average for literally the entire state. This time around, even all the way out towards the coast. I'll show you the temperatures coming up in the full forecast. The only place where you will find a respite is above 5,000 feet in the mountains, but even there, it's going to be a bit on the warm side. Taking a look at record potential as we go into the weekend, it's definitely there. I'm forecasting 118 and 117 for Palm Springs and Thermal this weekend, and you can very clearly see in the red there that all of these numbers well above records. Take a look outside right now. It's actually quite pleasant. 96 degrees. We finally got that diurnal switch over to the north-northwest, and humidity riding about 25%. Next 3 days brought to you by Comfort Air. It will be warm on Thursday, and then it officially becomes hot on Friday. It gets even hotter on Saturday. The good news is it looks like that'll be the peak. Next week, we're going to see everything calm back down again. I'll tell you the whole story. It's minutes away.
Coronavirus coverage brought to you by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
Let's take a look at the latest COVID-19 numbers for Riverside County and the Valley. 153 new cases were reported in Riverside County. 25 of those are from the Coachella Valley. There were 7 new deaths, though, countywide, and 1 of those was from our valley. Riverside County reports the first flu-related death of 2020. It was a man in his 80s from San Jacinto Valley. Health officials are worried as we head into the flu season, while still in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, so they're encouraging everyone to get the flu shot. Last flu season, there were 8 flu-related deaths in Riverside County. New research confirms steroids significantly reduce the risk of death in critical coronavirus patients. WHO scientists found patients treated with steroids were 34% less likely to die. The benefit was consistent regardless of the type of steroid use, the dose, or whether the patient was on a ventilator. The WHO is now calling for steroids to become the standard of care for severe and critical COVID-19 patients. Top American scientists are now saying convalescent plasma should not be considered standard care for COVID patients. The National Institutes of Health says there is no evidence backing the use of convalescent plasma. The experts say there's no data that demonstrates the efficiency and safety of plasma treatment. The national stockpile of ventilators is at maximum capacity right now. The Department of Health and Human Services says there are nearly 120,000 available to send to states and communities in need. In fact, the Trump administration announced it's canceling some remaining ventilator orders. At the beginning of the pandemic, there was a national ventilator shortage when ICUs were overwhelmed with coronavirus patients. Dr. Anthony Fauci makes a plea to Americans as we head into the Labor Day weekend. He's asking Americans to be cautious, not careless.
We know from prior experience that when you get into holiday weekends, the 4th of July, Memorial Day, there's a tendency of people to be careless somewhat with regard to the public health measures that we keep recommending over and over again. So I really want to use this opportunity almost to have a plea to the people in this country to realize that we really still need to get our arms around this and to suppress these types of surges that we've seen.
Fauci says masks, social distancing, avoiding crowds, and spending time outdoors rather than indoors are all ways to keep everyone safe. The WHO's regional director for Europe says societies will overcome the coronavirus pandemic by learning to live with it. Hans Klug said we will conquer the virus not necessarily by finding a vaccine, but by being prepared for it. Klug predicted an increase in cases through October and November, but said governments will be better prepared to manage transmission. iOS and Android users can now opt into a system for contact tracing. You'll get a notification for a possible exposure to coronavirus when you change your phone's settings to do so. Using Bluetooth, the system records when 2 or more smartphones come within a certain distance of each other. So far, Riverside County will not adopt the new system.
We have some very clear protocol that we follow for contact tracing. And so we do that by having direct contact with the individuals and doing follow-up calls and utilizing software that we've worked with to get approval through the county. And that is not something that at this time the county has decided to utilize or is exploring using.
Some states have been using the app version, but this new version means health agencies won't need to build a contact tracing app of their own. Again, at this time, Riverside County is not including this feature as part of its contact tracing. The CDC is further protecting people from eviction. A new order will help Americans who qualified for direct payments under the CARES Act, or people earning less than $99,000 a year. But the person must prove they've tried to get government assistance for rent and show they can't pay because of COVID financial hardship. We've received multiple calls into our newsroom during the pandemic. Tenants say their landlords are raising the rent or cost of utilities. They feel like they're being forced out of their homes without the resources to leave. Last week, we shared the story of tenants in Indio. Tonight, in Desert Hot Springs, tenants are protesting outside their homes. Our Regina Rita investigates.
It's happening across the desert. From Indio to Desert Hot Springs, tenants say their landlords are increasing their rent or utility fees unfairly in the middle of a pandemic. Now some tenants are taking to the streets in frustration.
Well, the bills are too high.
Residents at Indian Canyon Mobile Home Park say their property manager has taken it a step too far. They say she's harassing them and their kids.
Attacking people, coming up to people, immediately yelling at them for absolutely zero reason.
Tenants at this mobile home park say they were already being overcharged for electricity. Some were paying $400 a month, and now they're paying about $700 a month for electricity.
It's just unfair. None of the people here are consuming that much electricity to charge this insane amount of money.
The Riverside County Housing Authority says they've seen this story before, but they say landlords are taking advantage of tenants, and it's becoming more common during the pandemic.
It's sort of hard to answer the questions without seeing their agreements and how it was decided that they would, whether all the electricity is split between the different mobile homes. Is each mobile home metered separately? And if so, they should be providing a statement of how much electricity was used.
These tenants don't have time to wait. Rent is due in just a few days, and the Housing Authority says they are willing to work with the landlords and tenants to reach an agreement.
Definitely, we want to encourage everybody to give our office a call, because that way we can start looking into it and seeing what issues we can fix. And we often will refer over to Inland County Legal Services as well.
Landlords ultimately have to pay for property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. We also reached out to the property owner and managers of the mobile home park for comment. They have not yet returned our calls. For NBC Palm Springs, I'm Regina Urita.
Coming up next, we're going to take a listen to the president's statements today about voting twice in North Carolina. The president is suggesting North Carolina voters should test the system by voting twice. Well, we'll show you what he said. Campaigning in North Carolina, President Trump appears to encourage voters to vote twice, both by mail and in person. Listen closely to what he says.
They'll go out and they'll vote, and they're going to have to go and check their vote by going to the poll and voting that way, because if it tabulates, then they won't be able to do that. So let them send it in and let them go vote. And if their system's as good as they say it is, then obviously they won't be able to vote. If it isn't tabulated, they'll be able to vote. So that's the way it is.
Yeah, this was during an interview with a local TV station. The president said voters who mail in ballots should also go to the polls to essentially test the system. Now, remember, Americans can legally only vote once in an election. Under North Carolina law specifically, it's a felony for any one person to vote at more than one precinct or more than one time in an election. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi may have violated San Francisco COVID-19 safety regulations by getting her hair done. Her chief of staff acknowledged she visited a salon on Monday. They say Pelosi and her staff were incorrectly told by someone at the salon that the business was allowed to have one customer at a time. Reports also say Pelosi wasn't wearing a mask inside, but Pelosi's staff insisted she wore a mask except for a brief period. Pelosi says it was a setup.
I take responsibility for trusting the word of a neighborhood salon that I've been to over the years. As it turns out, it was a setup. So I take responsibility for falling for a setup. I think that that this salon owes me an apology for setting up.
Salons have been closed in San Francisco since March. As of yesterday, they were only allowed to reopen outdoor services. A Washington, D.C. task force recommends making changes to dozens of monuments. The commission suggests renaming, relocating, or adding context to several monuments because its namesakes participated in slavery or racial oppression. The project was spearheaded by D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. But many of the monuments are on federal land and are out of her control. The White House says the proposals will go absolutely nowhere, and the mayor should be ashamed for even suggesting the changes. When we come back, Mike has a look at our forecast. Hi, Mike.
That's me. Here's your Agua Caliente Casino Camp, downtown Palm Springs. We got it turned off towards that would be what, the north and northwest tonight. There's the post office in all its glory. No gusty winds out there tonight. In fact, everything's still and kind of tranquil. We are about to become very, very warm this weekend, and not just us. I'm talking about the entire Southwest. We've got all the details when we come back. Welcome back. Another tranquil live look courtesy of our Walter Clark 111 camera. A couple of cars out there tonight, but things just looking fairly mellow. And again, not looking at any gusty winds. Look along the I-10 corridor, we got that diurnal breeze that we were looking forward to. That's actually some really good news this time of year. We get that easterly flow by day, that northwesterly breeze by night that helps give us some ventilation. That's not important right now. This is what's important right now. This ridge of high pressure, really, I mean, if you wanted to, I could slap the big orange H in the middle of it for you, but very clearly defined. Remember, flow around a high is always clockwise. Well, look at how well defined this is. You've got the tropical movement happening there. You've got all of that movement happening in the Pacific Northwest and absolutely nothing in the middle. Not only is that the hallmark of high pressure, but this is what's called a broad ridge for a very specific reason here. Look at how wide that is. There's no cloud cover. There's no rain activity all the way through the Intermountain West. That's Colorado right there. That's Kansas. It's the first time that you find any type of activity is along the eastern edge of Texas. What that means in a very simple way is that we are not only about to get hot, we're also going to become very dry as well. In fact, it looks like the high is going to set up shop right over top of Nevada. And if it does, it looks like we could get some offshore flow for a couple of days. That's even worse. That really dries us out, especially towards the end of the Labor Day weekend. Maybe it's overkill, but I just literally hit every button where there was an excessive heat warning, and Coachella Valley is obviously included. I was mentioning this earlier. It's not just us, though. Remember the last heat wave we had along the coast, there were no watches or warnings. This time there are. The only place there's any respite is above 5,000 feet in the mountains, and otherwise everybody from here to the coast and all the way through the entire state is under either a watch or a warning. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, the entire Labor Day weekend here. Temperatures will run anywhere from about 6 to 12 degrees above average, except for us, because it looks like we're going to be really warm. We could be pushing 120 come Saturday. We're keeping a close eye on that. Right now, I'm still giving us about 118. High deserts will get up to about 112. Inland Empire between 105 and 115. Can you imagine Riverside at 115 degrees? No, thank you. Inland Orange County could get well above 100 degrees as well. The mountain foothills below 5,000 feet could get up to about 105. And even along the coast, we're tracking temperatures. It'll get up to about 90, 98 degrees and only cool to about the mid 70s overnight. I know it sounds wonderful, but that's really warm by their standards. Today looked pretty good in comparison, didn't it? 107 is where we got to today. 104 is the 30-year average. 118 is the record for today's date. By the way, today is the famous date that thermal hit 126 degrees back in 1950. 77 in the overnights was really nice. Dry air will do that for you. We've got some moderately dry air over the next few days, despite the fact that it's going to be really, really hot. We'll see dew points riding at about the 50s. That'll put minimum humidity down to about 15 to 20%. So the good news is it's not going to be super humid, but it's not going to be super dry either. Take a look at current temperatures right now. We got some low 80s in the Yucca Valley, some upper 80s in Desert Hot Springs, some upper 80s in Coachella. Still holding on to a stubborn 94 at the airport, but look at that 54 in Big Bear. Oh, that's above 5,000 feet for sure. Winds coming in from the northwest. Tomorrow starts off in the mid 80s, warms up to about 111 by 4 p.m. Tops out at 112 at the airport, 113 in Palm Desert, some low 100s out towards Joshua Tree, and some mid 80s at Big Bear. Okay, here it comes. Your Comfort Air 7-day forecast shows that heat peaking on Saturday. High fire danger through the entire weekend. Please do be very careful. Here's what happens next week, though. Tuesday, we get it down to 111, and Wednesday, there's a happy ending. 104. There's relief in sight.
All right, thank you, Mike. Well, first, Netflix had The Crown. Now it's getting The Real Crown. Netflix announces the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Harry and Meghan, have signed a multi-year production deal. Does not mean Meghan Markle is returning to acting, though. Although she and Prince Harry could appear on camera, the royal couple will be producing exclusive Netflix content like scripted series, documentaries, features, and children's shows. For Netflix, the deal is similar to the one the company made with the Obamas. It's unclear how much money Meghan and Harry will make off the deal. The highest paid actor in the world has tested positive for COVID-19. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson reveals on Instagram he, his wife, and their 2 daughters all have tested positive for the virus. He says they caught it from close family friends. He also says his family got those test results more than 2 weeks ago, and they have now recovered. They're feeling better. He called the disease one of the most challenging and difficult things we have ever had to endure as a family. That's a quote. Well, still to come, Home Depot stayed busy during the COVID shutdowns. We'll show you who was behind the madness at the hardware store. Stay with us. 3/4 of millennial homeowners are making upgrades during the coronavirus pandemic. It's part of a larger trend that kicked into high gear when much of the country shut down back in March. Nearly half of those millennials are going into debt as a result. You can now ask Alexa to pay for your next tank of gas. Yeah, Amazon and ExxonMobil allow the digital assistant to pay at the pump. It's available at more than 11,000 Exxon and Mobil stations in the U.S. Just ask Alexa, pay for gas using your phone or through your car. Payment goes through your Amazon Pay account, though. She doesn't actually pay for your gas, although that would be nice. And I apologize if I just set off your Alexa. Sorry. Sports is up next. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Time now for a look at your NBC Palm Springs sports headlines. Some sad news to start off tonight. Hall of Fame pitcher and Mets legend Tom Seaver has died at the age of 75. He reportedly passed away in his sleep from complications from dementia and Lyme disease. Now, Seaver is known as the greatest Met of all time. He won 311 games, had a career .286 ERA, and over 3,600 strikeouts. Again, the great Tom Seaver, dead at the age of 75. The NFL season kicks off in a little over a week. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell talked about the league and their focus as professional football returns to the field. Now, he touched on several topics, including health and safety issues and fans in the stands.
We want our fans to be able to experience the games. Public health and safety is number one for us. So if local officials are not comfortable from a medical standpoint, we're obviously going to heed that. We're going to have 2 or 3 stadiums next week, which will have significant fans in them. And I believe that will continue to grow as the season goes on.
The Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs will host the Houston Texans next Thursday night right here on NBC Palm Springs. The Kansas City Chiefs received their Super Bowl rings in a special ceremony yesterday at Arrowhead Stadium. The rings carry a total of 10.5 carats of gemstones, including 255 diamonds and 36 rubies. Each ring carries the player's name and jersey number.
Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant good afternoon to you. This is Vin making his debut on social media.
There's a familiar face and a familiar voice. Legendary Dodger broadcaster Vin Scully has made his debut on social media. He posted his first video to his new Twitter account today. Scully says he'll use the platform to talk about all things baseball, from famous dates in the game to famous players and teams. The 92-year-old also has a new Instagram page, and his Facebook page will also launch in November. That's going to do it for sports. We'll be right back.
David Blaine floated up in the air strapped to dozens of helium-filled balloons to see how high he could fly. Blaine was inspired to do the flight ever since he saw the movie Red Balloon as a child. His oxygen levels were being monitored throughout the whole flight and was in constant contact with his team of experts on the ground. And also, the FAA was made aware and was approved of the flight.
Now, was it like a magic trick of some kind, or was this
No, it's
simply
just like a fun little stunt, I think.
And he's aware that there's a helium shortage, right?
Oh, no, Mike.
Am I starting to sound like my dad? I feel kind of
Yes.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel.
I mean, but there is a helium shortage.
There is,
But whatever, I guess it just probably cost more.
That's pretty cool.
Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow night.